Rich man fires elderly worker. Years later, he discovers a secret about the man that leaves him stunned and remorseful. The sun shone brightly in Oregon, casting a warm glow over the city. Inside his office, Henry Aldridge sat at his desk, staring at the papers in front of him. His heart raced as he thought about the decision he had to make. He could feel the weight of his choice pressing down on him. Would he truly be able to go through with it? He glanced at the clock on the wall. Time was slipping away. He knew he had to act soon. Just then, a soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in," he called, his voice betraying a hint of hesitation. Lucia Bennett entered the office, her expression brightening as she saw him. She had always been a ray of sunshine in the workplace, bringing energy and creativity. But today, there was an air of tension that Henry couldn't shake off. "Henry, you wanted to see me?" she asked, her tone curious and cheerful. "Yes, Lucia, please, have a seat." He motioned to the chair across from him, forcing a smile, even though his stomach twisted in knots. As she settled in, Henry felt a mix of guilt and justification swirl within him. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. This was harder than he thought it would be. "Lucia, I need to talk to you about something important." Her eyes narrowed slightly, sensing the seriousness in his voice. "Is everything okay?" Henry couldn't hold her gaze as he answered. "No, it's not. I'm afraid I have to let you go." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, and Henry watched as shock washed over Lucia's face. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. He could see the confusion and disbelief in her eyes. "Wait, what do you mean? I thought my work was going well," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know you've been doing great work, but the company is shifting directions and—" He trailed off, unsure of how to continue. Each word felt like a dagger to his heart. "But I need this job. I've poured everything into it." Lucia's voice rose, frustration and hurt bubbling to the surface. "I'm sorry, Lucia. I genuinely am. This isn't easy for me either," he said, feeling his own remorse swell. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You're making a mistake." Her voice trembled with emotion. Henry's heart sank as he watched her turn away, the finality of the moment settling like a stone in his chest. As she walked out of the office, he felt a deep sense of loss. Had he truly made the right choice? He sat in silence, the bright sun outside contrasting sharply with the darkness he felt inside. Memories of their time working together flooded his mind, laughing over coffee breaks, brainstorming ideas late into the night, and the trust they had built over the years. Was success worth sacrificing such a valuable connection? Doubts crept in, gnawing at him. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair, wondering if he would ever feel whole again after this moment. The quiet of the room felt deafening, and he realized that he was left alone with his thoughts. The decision he had made echoed in his mind, a haunting reminder of what he had just done. Would Lucia ever forgive him? Would he be able to forgive himself? As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across his office, Henry pondered the path he had chosen. The journey ahead felt uncertain, and the weight of his decision pressed heavily on his shoulders. The future loomed before him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just crossed a line from which there was no return. Lucia sat in her small apartment, the silence wrapping around her like a heavy blanket. The walls, once vibrant with her artwork, now felt dull and lifeless. She stared blankly at the empty canvas in front of her, her heart aching from the shock of losing her job. The dismissal had come out of nowhere, a sudden cut that left her reeling. She thought about all the late nights spent working alongside Henry, the laughter, and the shared dreams. Now those memories felt like ghosts haunting her. "I can't believe this is happening," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible. Tears threatened to spill from her eyes, but she pushed them away. Instead, she grabbed her paintbrush, determined to channel her pain into something meaningful. With each stroke on the canvas, she poured her heart out, colors dancing and swirling together, reflecting her inner turmoil. Days turned into weeks as Lucia lost herself in her art. Each painting told a story of loss, of resilience, and of hope. The vibrant colors she used were a stark contrast to the dark cloud that hung over her heart. She found solace in the creative process, and with every new piece, she felt a bit lighter. One afternoon, as she worked on a particularly emotional piece, her friend Mia stopped by for a visit. Mia had been worried about Lucia after hearing about her job loss. "Hey, Lucia, I brought you some coffee," Mia said, walking in with a warm smile. "How are you holding up?" Lucia glanced at the half-finished painting, her heart heavy. "I'm trying to stay busy, you know. It's just hard to believe that I'm not working anymore." Mia set the coffee down and looked around the room. "But look at what you're doing. Your paintings are incredible. You have such talent. Maybe this is a chance to focus on your art full-time." Lucia sighed, unsure. "I don't know, Mia. It's scary. What if it doesn't work out? What if I fail?" "You won't fail. You have a gift," Mia insisted, her eyes shining with encouragement. "Besides, you've always wanted to share your art with the world. Now's your chance." As Lucia took a sip of her coffee, she felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps Mia was right. Maybe this loss could lead to something new. With renewed determination, she returned to her canvas, allowing the colors to flow freely, her emotions guiding her hand. Meanwhile, across town, Henry Aldridge sat in his office, surrounded by stacks of paperwork. He was buried in work, trying to forget his decision to let Lucia go. At first, he had felt relief, thinking that it was best for the company, but as days passed, that relief turned into an unsettling emptiness. "Hey, Henry, you okay?" his assistant Jake asked, noticing the frown etched on Henry's face. "Yeah, I'm fine," Henry replied, forcing a smile. But inside, he felt anything but fine. Memories of Lucia flooded his mind, her laughter, her creativity, and the spark she brought to the office. He began to question if he had made the right choice. Sitting alone in his office, Henry picked up a framed photo of him and Lucia at a company event. They were both laughing, and the picture seemed to mock him now. "What have I done?" he murmured, his voice thick with regret. That evening, as he left the office, he noticed a few of his employees chatting in the hallway. They seemed engaged and happy, a stark contrast to his own feelings of isolation. He realized that he had been so focused on business that he had neglected the importance of connection. "I should reach out to them more," he thought, a glimmer of resolve sparking within him. Perhaps he could learn from the very mistakes that had led to his decision. He needed to understand his team better, to create a work environment where everyone felt valued. Back in her apartment, Lucia finished her painting, stepping back to admire her work. It was a vibrant explosion of colors, a reflection of her journey through pain and empowerment. She felt a sense of accomplishment swell within her. "I can do this," she said softly to herself, a small smile breaking through the shadows of doubt. "I will make this my new beginning." As Lucia cleaned her brushes, she felt an unfamiliar lightness in her heart. The road ahead was uncertain, but she was ready to embrace it, one brushstroke at a time. Little did she know, Henry was beginning to realize the importance of his choices too, setting the stage for their lives to intertwine once again. Years passed quickly in Henry Aldridge's life. The sun rose and set over Oregon, marking the days as he continued his work, seemingly unaffected by the passage of time. But one day, while cleaning out an old file cabinet, he found something unexpected. As he pulled out papers, a faded envelope fell to the floor. It was addressed to him, the handwriting delicate and familiar. Heart racing with curiosity, he picked it up and began to read. "Dear Henry," it began. The words flowed like a stream, each line pulling Henry deeper into a world he thought he knew well. As he read on, his mind raced. The letter revealed a truth he had never imagined. Lucia, the woman he had dismissed years ago, was his biological mother. She had given him up for adoption when he was a child. Henry's breath caught in his throat. "No, it can't be," he whispered to himself. He felt as if the ground beneath him had shifted. The letter went on to explain her reasons, her struggles, and the love she had for him. She had wanted a better life for him, one that she felt she could not provide. As he continued to read, the weight of her words sank in. "I have always loved you, even from afar," she wrote. "Leaving you was the hardest thing I ever had to do." Tears welled in Henry's eyes, blurring the ink on the page. The revelation shattered his understanding of family. For years, he had thought of loyalty in terms of business and success, but now he felt a deep guilt for dismissing Lucia without knowing the truth. He had put his career above personal connections, and now he was left with a sense of loss that he could not shake. "What have I done?" he murmured, collapsing into his chair. The office felt empty, the walls closing in around him. Memories of Lucia flooded his mind, her laughter, the way she had always encouraged him. He had taken her presence for granted, never knowing she was so much more than just a colleague. As he sat there, grappling with this profound discovery, he knew he had to find Lucia. He needed answers, but more than that, he needed to make amends. He picked up his phone, hesitating for a moment before dialing her number. The sound of the ringing echoed in his ears, each tone amplifying his anxiety. "Hello?" Lucia's voice came through, warm yet cautious. "Lucia, it's Henry," he said, his voice trembling. "I need to talk to you. It's important." "Henry?" Lucia's surprise was evident. "What's going on?" "I found something. A letter you wrote. Before you left," he explained, struggling to keep his emotions in check. "I need to see you. Can we meet?" There was a long pause on the line. Henry could almost hear her heart racing as she processed his request. "All right," she finally said. "Where?" "Let's meet at the cafe on Main Street. I'll be there in an hour," he suggested, hope mingling with dread. As he hung up the phone, Henry felt a mix of fear and anticipation. He realized that confronting Lucia would not be easy. They had both been hurt, and the pain of the past loomed over them like a dark cloud. When he arrived at the cafe, the familiar smell of coffee filled the air, but it did little to calm his nerves. He found a table in the corner, tapping his fingers against the wooden surface as he waited. Moments later, Lucia walked in, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on him. She approached slowly, her expression unreadable. "Henry," she said softly, taking a seat across from him. "Lucia, He started, but the words caught in his throat. How could he explain the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside him? "I read the letter," he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I had no idea. I'm so sorry for how I treated you." Lucia's eyes widened, and for a moment, he thought she might pull away. But instead, she leaned in closer. "You didn't know, Henry." "I understand that now," she replied, her tone steady, but her eyes reflecting a mix of sadness and understanding. "I wish I could go back and change things," he said, feeling the weight of regret. "I prioritized my job over everything else. I didn't see what really mattered." Lucia sighed, her hands clasped tightly on the table. "We both made choices. We can't change the past, but we can try to understand it." As they talked, the tension between them began to ease. They shared their stories, their pain, and their hopes for the future. Slowly, the pieces of their fractured relationship began to reconnect, and for the first time, Henry felt a glimmer of hope. In that small cafe, they started to build a bridge over the chasm that had separated them for so long. The discovery had shattered their worlds, but it also opened a door to the possibility of healing. Henry Aldridge felt a storm of emotions as he drove to the small cafe where he had arranged to meet Lucia. The weight of the letter he had read still clung to him. He could hardly believe that the woman he had dismissed was, in fact, his biological mother. The thought twisted in his stomach, mixing guilt and a desperate need for closure. As he entered the cafe, a bell chimed softly above the door, and he spotted Lucia sitting in a corner. She looked different, more fragile than he remembered. Her eyes, once bright with ambition, now seemed dimmed by hurt. Henry's heart sank as he approached her. "Lucia," he said softly, taking a seat across from her. "Thank you for coming." She nodded, but did not say a word. The silence between them was thick and uncomfortable. Henry glanced down at his hands, unsure of how to begin. "I know you're angry," he finally said, breaking the stillness. "I would be too. I've had time to think about everything." Lucia looked up, her expression a mix of pain and defiance. "You don't get to decide how I feel, Henry. You made your choice when you let me go." "I know," he replied, his voice heavy with regret. "I thought I was doing what was best for the company. I never considered the personal cost." "The personal cost?" Lucia's voice rose slightly, laced with hurt. "You don't think I felt that too? You took away my job, my stability. But more than that, you took away a chance to know my own son." Henry winced at her words. "I had no idea, Lucia. I had no idea you were my mother. If I had known..." "If you had known, what?" she snapped. "Would you have treated me differently? Would you have kept me on? Or would it still have been business as usual?" He looked at her, his heart pounding. "I would have tried to understand. I would have fought for you." Lucia leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "You had the chance to fight for me long before this. I've been through so much since I left. I lost everything." "I know I can't change the past," Henry said, his voice breaking slightly. "But I want to try and make it right. I want to know you, to understand you." "Do you even know what that means?" Lucia asked, her eyes narrowing. "You think you can just walk back into my life because you discovered a secret? It's not that simple." "I know it's not," he admitted, his heart racing. "But I've felt empty since the day I let you go. I've missed you, Lucia, more than I can express." For a moment, Lucia was silent, her expression softening just a little. "I've missed you too, Henry. But it's not just about missing each other. There's so much pain between us." "I want to face it," he replied, his voice steady. "I want to confront our past together. We can't change what happened, but we can build something new." Lucia studied him closely, as if searching for sincerity in his eyes. "And what if I'm not ready for that?" "Then I'll wait," he said, his tone earnest. "I understand if you need time, but I'm here and I'm willing to listen whenever you are." Lucia sighed, a mix of frustration and longing in her voice. "It's hard for me, Henry. I've spent years rebuilding my life. I can't just forget the hurt." He nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I don't expect you to forget. I just hope we can find a way to move forward, together." As they sat across from each other, the tension began to shift. It was still there, lingering in the air, but there was also a glimmer of hope. "Maybe," Lucia said slowly, "we can start with small steps. Perhaps we can share a meal once in a while, see where that leads us." Henry felt a rush of relief and gratitude. "I'd like that, more than anything." With that small agreement, they both knew they had taken a significant step towards healing. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like they were not just two lost souls, but two people willing to reconnect. After their emotional confrontation, Lucia found herself at a crossroads. The pain of her past began to transform into something new. With each brushstroke on canvas, she poured her heart into her art. The colors reflected her journey, hues of sadness mixed with vibrant shades of hope. The local community started to notice her talent. One sunny afternoon, Lucia stood in her small studio, surrounded by her latest pieces. She glanced at her phone as it buzzed. It was a message from a local art gallery. "We would love to showcase your work in our upcoming exhibition," it read. Lucia's heart raced. "This could change everything," she whispered to herself, a smile slowly spreading across her face. She felt a wave of excitement wash over her, replacing the loneliness she had felt for so long. Meanwhile, Henry was also feeling the weight of change. He sat in his office, staring blankly at his computer screen. The memory of Lucia lingered in his mind. After their meeting, he could no longer ignore the emptiness in his life. He had spent so many years focused solely on work, but now he felt a deep need to connect with others, especially his employees. "Hey, Sarah," he called out to his assistant. "Can you gather the team for a meeting? I want to talk about some changes." "Sure, Henry. What's on your mind?" Sarah replied, curious. "I think we need to focus more on teamwork and building relationships. I want everyone to feel valued," he said, his voice steady. As he spoke, Henry felt a sense of purpose. He realized that success was not just about profits, but about the people who helped him achieve those goals. Later that week, Lucia received another message. "Your artwork has been selected for the gallery opening next month. We can't wait to see your pieces displayed," it said. She jumped up, her heart full of joy. This was her chance to share her story with the world. "Henry, you have to come to my exhibition," she decided, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. She sent him a text, hoping he would come to support her. When the day of the gallery opening arrived, Lucia stood nervously in front of her artwork. The walls were filled with her paintings, each telling a story of her journey. She wore a simple yet elegant dress, and her eyes sparkled with hope. As guests began to arrive, Lucia spotted Henry walking through the door. He looked around, taking in the vibrant colors of her work. His eyes landed on her, and a smile broke across his face. "Lucia, these are incredible," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "You have such a gift." "Thank you, Henry. It means a lot to have you here," she replied, her heart fluttering at his presence. They walked together through the gallery, discussing each piece. "This one feels so raw," he said, pointing to a painting filled with deep blues and reds. "What inspired it?" Lucia took a breath, feeling vulnerable, yet safe with him. "It represents the struggle I faced after losing my job. I wanted to show that even in the darkest moments, there is a light to be found." Henry nodded, understanding her pain more deeply now. "I wish I had seen your struggles sooner. I never realized how much you were hurting." Lucia smiled softly. "It's okay. We're here now, and that's what matters." As the evening went on, Lucia felt a sense of healing wash over her. Henry was not just her former boss, he was becoming a friend, someone who respected her journey. They shared laughter and stories, building a bridge over the painful past. As the night drew to a close, they found themselves standing together in front of her favorite piece, a painting that symbolized hope and renewal. "Here's to new beginnings," Henry said, raising a glass of sparkling water. "To new beginnings," Lucia echoed, her heart full. In that moment, they both knew they were stepping into a new chapter of their lives, one filled with understanding, connection, and the promise of healing. The journey ahead was uncertain, but it was one they were now ready to face together. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the local gallery, where Lucia was set to showcase her artwork. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement and anticipation as guests began to arrive, their chatter filling the air. Lucia stood nervously near the entrance, her heart racing. This was not just an exhibition, it was a celebration of her journey, her pain, and her triumph. Henry arrived a little late, his heart pounding in his chest. As he entered the gallery, he was struck by the beauty of Lucia's paintings. Each piece told a story, reflecting her struggles and her growth. He spotted Lucia, her face lit up with a mix of nervousness and pride. She wore a simple blue dress that flowed gracefully around her, a stark contrast to the vibrant colors of her artwork. "Lucia," he called out, walking toward her. She turned, her eyes widening with surprise and joy. "Henry, I didn't expect you to come," she said, a smile breaking across her face. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," he replied, his voice filled with warmth. "Your work is incredible. I can see so much of you in it." Lucia blushed, glancing at her paintings. "Thank you. It means a lot to hear that from you. I've poured my heart into this." They stood side by side, admiring the artwork. Each piece was unique, yet they all shared a common thread of resilience and beauty. Henry felt a swell of pride for Lucia, realizing how far she had come since their tumultuous past. "I remember when you first started painting again," he said, his eyes still on the artwork. "You seemed so lost back then." Lucia nodded, her expression turning serious. "I was, but art helped me find my way. It gave me a voice when I felt I had none." Henry turned to her, his gaze earnest. "I'm so proud of you, Lucia. You've turned your pain into something beautiful." "Thank you, Henry. That means more than you know," she said, her voice softening. "I've learned that we can rise from our struggles. It's all part of the journey." As the evening unfolded, guests mingled, sharing in the beauty of Lucia's art. Henry watched her interact with others, her confidence shining through. She was no longer the same woman he had dismissed years ago. She had transformed into someone strong and inspiring. As the crowd began to thin, Lucia pulled Henry aside, a glint of excitement in her eyes. "I want to show you something special. Come with me." Curious, Henry followed her to a quieter corner of the gallery. There, she unveiled a large canvas covered with a cloth. With a flourish, she removed it to reveal a stunning painting of a tree, its branches reaching out in all directions, vibrant leaves bursting with color. "This is my favorite piece," Lucia said, her voice filled with emotion. "It represents growth and connection. The roots are intertwined, just like our lives." Henry stared at the painting, feeling a wave of emotion wash over him. "It's beautiful, Lucia, just like you." They stood in silence for a moment, absorbing the significance of the moment. Finally, Lucia turned to him, a serious expression on her face. "Henry, I want to thank you for believing in me, for being here. I feel like we can finally move forward." Henry nodded, his heart full. "I feel the same way. I've learned so much from you. You've taught me the importance of connection and forgiveness." Lucia smiled, a tear glistening in her eye. "It's never too late, is it?" "No, it's not," he replied, his voice steady. "We have the power to change our story." They embraced, a moment of warmth and understanding enveloping them. It was a new beginning, a step toward healing and rebuilding their relationship. As they pulled away, Lucia looked into Henry's eyes, her expression filled with hope. "Let's make this the start of something beautiful," she said softly. "Together," Henry agreed, feeling a renewed sense of purpose as they stepped into the future, side by side, ready to embrace the ties that bind them. Share this story if you believe that resilience and connection can transform our lives. Leave a comment about a moment of inspiration that helped you grow, and subscribe for more uplifting stories like this one.